We now have intro music. We're live. Welcome to another episode of INDYCARPER. I am your host, Case Racem, A.K.A. your residential IndyCar armchair analyst. And we just had two great races at Barber Motorsports Park over in Birmingham, Alabama. We got to talk about it. First up, before we talk about Barber, both the Indy Next and IndyCar race, we have a couple news stories I want to talk about. First off, I want to give my final thoughts on the whole St. Petersburg Penske fiasco. And mainly, I just want to talk about who I am pretty upset with at the whole situation. Let me go ahead and start this off by saying, I just want to go ahead and say, do not blame the drivers. Like Hinchcliffe said in practice one, I'm not blaming the drivers for the whole situation. I get Joseph Newgarden pushes the button more than most, thinking he has it when he does. He pushes it when he thinks he doesn't have it, but all of a sudden he did. Joseph Newgarden took full responsibility. All the drivers really took full responsibility for it. Like Hinch said, you don't blame the drivers. Basically, they thought, oh, I have a push to pass advantage. I better push it to not lose my advantage on the field. Instead of thinking, oh, I push the pass when I don't have it, when I don't need it. I better tell someone. They're thinking everyone else has it. Right now, the main person I'm upset with this whole situation is the president of Team Penske, Tim Cindric, because his whole situation of handling it was basically saying, you think we got an advantage from that? What made you come to that conclusion? Basically trying to gaslight everyone. That's what I have a problem with. I'm sorry if you're a Penske fan or Tim Cindric fan. I'm sorry. I'm a little ticked off at him with the whole fiasco. Let's go ahead and we had a great weekend at Indy Next and IndyCar and Barber. Let's push this out to the side. But before we talk about IndyCar and Barber, we had some news drop this morning. Well, I was waking up this morning before I started editing, making my graphics and everything for this episode. We had a little bit of a news drop. David Malukas removed from the 6 car. He joins now 4 other drivers in the McLaren IndyCar graveyard. Here's the updated graveyard. Basically, from the sound of it, is Malukas' contract had a situation where if he missed 4 races, they could terminate the contract, essentially. Malukas ended up injuring his wrist, missed the first 4 races, and now he doesn't have a ride. I get it. If McLaren put that in his contract from the beginning, I fully understand that. However, McLaren is really trying to be the most disliked team on the IndyCar grid, and they're doing a damn good job at it. Pardon my language, they're doing a damn good job. I mean, the most disliked team, because the Maluka, you basically look from the outsider perspective. I'm doing this all from the outsider's perspective. You basically use David Malukas for Instagram and social media content. He doesn't even race a race, injures his wrist, his contract's null and void. Let's go ahead and talk about everyone on this list. James Hinchcliffe over here on the right. Once McLaren bought out Schmidt Peterson in the 5 team in 2019, the idea was Hinch had a year left on his contract. They're going to let him run out his contract. But all of a sudden, the ESPN body issue comes out. He does the ESPN body issue. They don't like that. They terminate his contract, basically tell him to go away. That's what made me not like McLaren from the beginning. And then over top left, you got Oliver Askew. He races for them in 2020. Ends up getting a concussion. He didn't want to tell McLaren. He didn't want to tell the doctors at McLaren he was racing with a concussion because he thought he ended up losing his ride, which he ended up doing. He ended up losing his ride. That's why he didn't tell him, because he thought the same thing would happen to Hinch a year ago. And down here, Felix Rosenqvist. He drives for them for 3 years, all on 1-year deals. Basically, Rosenqvist was never the first option outside of 2021 and 2022. But 2022 happens. Then they think they're going to get Alex Flow from Chip Ganassi. Alex Flow and NTT Data was going to come over. That doesn't happen. They were going to put Felix. They wanted him to go to Formula E, but Felix Rosenqvist is an IndyCar guy. He's a great IndyCar driver. They don't get Flow. They basically have to say, sorry, we want you in the 6 this year. He does 1 more year. Now he's thriving. He loves being the leader of Shank. He's teaching the rookie Tom Blomqvist about IndyCar. Felix Rosenquist driving that Meyer Shank outside of Aaron McLaren. He's loving it. Now you got David Malukas here in the middle. Runs 3 races, loses his ride, or doesn't even run 3 races. He misses the first 4 races and ends up getting his contract null and void. Loses his ride. Once again, I think he was the second option because they lost Plo. Plo didn't want to leave Ganassi after all. So Malukas was a second option. What this tells me is outside of Pato, because Pato's basically their number one guy, their number one option. Outside of Pato, Ward, if you're not McLaren's number one guy, your leash is either very, very thin in the case of Rosenquist, Askew, and Malukas, or it's non existent like James Hinchcliffe. That's from what I'm getting from this. Is basically if you're not the number one guy there at McLaren, you don't even have a leash, or it's a very, very thin leash. And right now, McLaren was more transparent with the Malukas situation, saying, look, he missed 4 races. And they told us that from the beginning of the year. People wouldn't be mad at them. They'd be completely fine with it. But it's the fact they're not being transparent with everything is what's getting people upset. It's whatever. But with the 6 car, looking at the schedules, it's probably going to be Callum Ilott and Teo Porcher sharing that number 6 car. But each of them are committed to different series, with Callum Ilott committed to WEC and Teo Porcher committed to Super Formula. None of the dates collide with each other where both of them can't race. I expect Teo Porcher to probably be back at the IMS road course, and Callum Ilott tested the car for the 500 test. So he'll probably be there for the Indy 500. The only 3 dates I'm kind of worried about this 6 car is Iowa, Milwaukee, and Nashville, because all of them have WEC interference. So Callum Ilott can't race it, and he's already oval trained. So if you want Teo Porcher to race it, I'm pretty sure he's going to have to do an oval open test. But then again, they are short ovals. They might not have him do an open test. But if you don't want Teo Porcher to race those ovals, I have a feeling they might call IndyCar Super Sub Connor Daly, because right now he's only contracted with Dreyer Reinbold Cusick for the Indy 500. I'm sure Connor and Chase and all the on Hinch, Rossi, and them are all going to talk about on their respective shows, both Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. I'm sure they're going to talk about on their respective shows about the whole situation. But I'm just going to say this right now. I'm going to go ahead and clip this and save it. I'm going to go ahead and stop. We're, we're going to record this. We're going to start a replay buffer. I'm going to save this. I'm going to go ahead and say this right now. I will not be surprised come Iowa, Nashville, Milwaukee if we see Connor Daly in that 6 car. Strictly because Teo Porcher has never raced in an oval. He may have to do a test. They might not feel comfortable with Teo Porcher doing the oval race. And Callum Ilott has WEC interference. So just saying this right now, I wouldn't be surprised at all if we see if we see Connor Daly in that 6 car. But that's enough about the IndyCar graveyard of McLaren. Let's go ahead. This is the big thing I want to talk about this week. The Indy Next Series, a.k.a. the Xfinity Series, or a AAA Series, where drivers are looking to prove themselves to get an IndyCar ride. They return after their almost 2-month vacation between St. Pete and this week at Barber. We're gonna go ahead, have a quick little race recap. We're gonna look at the points, and I'm gonna give out, as I always do with the IndyCar and the Indy Next Series, I'm giving out my case racing driver of the day for both series, as well as talking about the next race up for both series. Let's go ahead. Here's the results of the Grand Prix of Alabama. We're going to go through driver by driver. Top 2 from St. Pete, Jacob Abel, Nolan Siegel. They basically flip-flop. They were having a great race the whole time. Nolan Siegel was basically trying to force Jacob Abel into a mistake, but Jacob Abel held his ground, ended up winning the race. Gets his first career Indy Next win. James Rowe comes home, rounds out the podium in third. Cal Collette has a solid weekend, starts fourth, finishes fourth. Louis Foster, I'll talk about him with my driver of the day. He finishes fifth after starting last. Miles Rowe, solid run in the 99 and sixth. And Michael D'Orlando finishes seventh. He finished fourth at St. Pete. He's back. He was back this weekend, but he's still on a race-by-race basis. Hopefully, we see him at IMS road course. He has a solid point standings. Hopefully he finds the funding for IMS Road Course and we see him there next week. Who knows? Well, or not next week. Hopefully we see him there 2 weeks on May 11th and May 10th. Who knows? We may not. I don't know. We'll have to see. Bryce Aaron comes home 8th. He ended up breaking St. Petersburg. Still comes home with a top 10 finish this week. He needed a solid run. Callum Hedge comes home 9th in that 17 car. Salvador de Alba in the number 2 for Andretti K comes home, rounds up the top 10. Reese Gold, J.W. Miller in 11th and 12th, respectively. Christian Bogle, I was hoping for a good run out of him. Ends up coming home 13th. Jonathan Brown in the 23, 14th. Niles Cooling in the 33. He's 15th. Josh Mason, 21, comes home in 16th. Josh Pearson, I believe he's the East Ed Carpenter Racing Development driver. He comes home. Not a great run for him in 17th. Nolan Allier, he comes home in 18th. Runs on the laps. Great run for him. Lindsey Brewer finishes a lap down. Not a great race for her in that Juncos Hollander 76. Comes home 19th. Jamie Chadwick was running top 5 or top 10 the whole race. She was on her way to finishing 6th or 7th. Ended up spinning with 2 to go. Didn't have a great finish. She really can't catch a break. She's having great practice and qualifying speed, but she just can't catch a break and get the finish she needs. And rounding out the field in the number 22 is Yuvan Sundramworthy. He ended up stalling out first caution. He ended up causing the first caution for stalling out. He finishes 3 laps down. Not a great race for him. Hopefully he can rebound when we go to IMS here in a couple weeks. I think he can rebound. Just not Barber was not his day. That rounds out the field. Now let's go look at the point standings. Nolan Siegel, Jacob Abel, they are tied at the top of the list because Nolan Siegel won St. Pete, finished second at Barber. Jacob Abel finishes second at St. Pete, wins Barber. They're basically tied in the points. One of them will probably get the advantage. Not probably. One of them will come out of IMS with an advantage after race 3 and 4. Louis Foster, he's still third in the standings, 30 points back. Cal Collette, fourth. Him and Michael D'Orlando are tied, but it might not be tied. Hopefully we see Michael D'Orlando at IMS. I want to see him. I don't know if we will, but hopefully we do. Michael D'Orlando, 5th in the points. Miles Rowe, 6th. Reese Golden, 7th. James Rowe, who finished on the podium this weekend, he's still 8th in the points. Jonathan Brown in 9th. And Salvador de Alba rounds out your top 10 point in Indy Next point standings. That's just a quick look at the points. We did our race recap of Indy Next. We looked at the points. There's just one thing left to do there's just a couple things left to do actually before we move on to the IndyCar race. First off, as always, I like to give my Casey Racing driver of the day for both the Indy Next and IndyCar series. Basically, the criteria I grade this on is I don't want to give it to a winner. I don't want to give it to a winner race. It's basically the driver who did the most, slicing and dicing through the field, improved their finishing position, or a driver that genuinely impressed me the whole weekend. For Indy Next, it wasn't a hard choice. Your Casey Racing Indy Next driver of the day for the Grand Prix of Alabama at Barber Motorsports Park goes to Louis Foster. Started dead last on the field. Finishes 5th. Great run for him. Still solidly 3rd in this point standings. Maybe he can bite into the gap that Nolan Siegel and Jacob Abel have on the field at IMS. Still a solid run for him. Let's give it up for Louis Foster. Top 5 finish after starting last. He is your Casey Racing Indy Next driver of the day. Enough of that. Reminder, next race up for the Indy Next, the Indy Next race up. We got 2 races actually. We're at the IMS road course. You got the Indianapolis Grand Prix doubleheader for the Firestone Indy Next series. May 10th at 6:30 p.m. Eastern and May 11th at 1 p.m. Eastern. Both races, as always, for the Indy Next series, they're all streaming exclusively on Peacock. Make sure you got a Peacock subscription so you can see basically the AAA of the IndyCar series, see these young drivers slicing and dicing, hopefully finding their opportunity to go to the IndyCar series this year. And remember, Jacob Abel, Nolan Siegel, we'll more than likely see one of them, unless it ends up like Barber and St. Pete, where they both win one and finish second at the other, and they're basically tied. One of them will get a clear-cut advantage this year for next week and have the early advantage for the Indy Next series. We'll have to see. Tune in Grand Prix doubleheader at Indianapolis, both May 10th and May 11th. May 10th, 6:30 p.m. Eastern. May 11th, 1 p.m. Eastern. Always streaming on Peacock. But before we talk about the IndyCar race, I want to talk about this funny story that happened during the race. This is my intermission. We got to talk about Georgina. Georgina is a mannequin that's always at Barber. That's apparently been at Barber Motorsports Park for the races. Georgina, like apparently she was tied to a bridge on top of the track. She came loose. Georgina the mannequin falls off the bridge, lands on the track, and one of the drivers ends up running over her right arm, her right hand. She doesn't have a right hand on the mannequin. Doesn't even have a right hand anymore. I hope she gets the right hand. But here's the funny thing: IndyCar and Barber, they should use this next year for the race. Talk about Georgina. Barber should have Georgina on display so fans can take pictures. This is a perfect marketing opportunity for IndyCar, and they had the opportunity to use it. Funny thing about Georgina is like they were talking about it during the broadcast. This shit was so funny. Pardon my language, but this crap was so funny. Apparently, James Hinchcliffe took off his headset and walked off because it was so funny. I mean, it was funny. You got the mannequin. Even Scott McLaughlin was taking pictures after winning the race, which, spoiler alert, we'll talk about the results here in a minute. But the Georgina mannequin, Barber, IndyCar, this is a perfect marketing opportunity for next year. I hope you fully take advantage of it. Now let's talk about IndyCar, Barber. We're going to have a quick race recap. Let's go ahead and look at the final results. Different pit strategies, 3-stop versus 2-stop. Scott McLaughlin, Will Power, finishes 1-2. Both of them were on 2-stop strategy. Linus Lundqvist, solid third place run for him. First career podium. Ends up getting his first career podium. This has been a track that was always great to him in Indy NXT Series. I think he won twice here in the Indy NXT Series. So great run for old Linus. Gets his first career podium. Does a completely different strategy than Scott McLaughlin and Will Power. Felix Rosenquist, Alex Palou finishes 4th and 5th, each of them on that 2-stop strategy. Lundgaard, he was my shot in the dark pick. Ends up finishing 6th. Solid run for Santino Ferrucci and AJ Foyt. He was on the same strategy as Lundqvist, where basically they pit after the first caution lap 4 and then do 3 stops. Ends up benefiting them, comes home 7th. Colton Herta, 8th place finish. We'll talk about him when we go to the point standings. Marcus Armstrong comes home 9th. Kirkwood finishes 10th. 10th place finish for Kirkwood. Graham Rahal in 11th. Roman Grosjean, always solid at Barber. Comes home 12th in the Hood Coast, number 77. Solid run for Jack Harvey in the Dale Coyne 18. Great run for him. Then you get the two Ganassi guys, Kiffin Simpson, Scott Dixon. Scott Dixon didn't need to do fuel save mode this week. Kiffin Simpson, solidly 14th. 15th, Scott Dixon, which is weird seeing him being the lowest finishing Ganassi car. Joseph Newgarden, another one of my winner picks, comes home 16th. Not a great day for him. Rinus VK 17th. He was slicing and dicing through the field, but still solid 17th place finish for him in the ECR 21. Not a great day for Marcus Ericsson, the 28th for Andretti Global. 19th place goes to Tom Blomqvist, the rookie. He's still slicing and dicing. He's still learning. Augustine Canapino comes home 20th in the 78. Luca Giotto in the number 51, the rookie, first career race, ends up finishing higher than all the McLaren drivers. So that's an accomplishment. He finishes all the laps. Great run for him in that number 51. We'll see him again in the IMS Road Course race. He signed for 2 races. Teo Porcher in his second race. Wasn't a great race for him. Comes home in 22nd. Pato Award, one of my other winner picks. Ends up spinning out. Not a great race for him. Finishes 24th. Christian Rasmussen, 24th. Alexander Rossi, his wheel ends up falling off. Funny moment in the race. Tighten your wheels, crew. Alexander Rossi, 25th. Stingray Robb ends up spinning as well as Pietro Fittipaldi. Not great races for those two. Come home 26th, 27th, respectively. That's a recap of the field. Let's go look at the point standings. As after this weekend, Colton Herta has a 1-point lead over Will Power in the point standings. Colton Herta now has a 3rd, a 2nd, and now an 8th place finish. He's 1 point ahead in the point standings. Will Power comes back 2nd. He didn't get DQ'd. he just remember he wasn't DQ'd at St. Pete. He just lost 10 points because he never pressed the button. Will Power 1 point back at Colton Herta. Alex Lowe still third in the standings, 4 points back. Scott Dixon from some first to fourth, but it's still early in the season. Felix Rosenquist, like I said, he loves me. I think he's loving being the number one guy, being the vet, teaching Tom Blomqvist stuff about Indy cars. He's solidly fifth in the standings. Pato goes to sixth. Kyle Kirkwood in seventh place. He was my shot in the dark championship pick. The number 8 Carlinas ends up in 8th place in the point standings after a great podium run. 9th place in the standings, Scott McLaughlin. He was basically last in the point standings after the penalty. Wins at Barber, goes back to back at Barber. Now he's solidly at 9th. And really not the top 10. I know it's still early, but great top 10 points position for Santino Ferrucci. He finishes 7th here. And just a reminder, Santino finished 3rd in Indy 500 in that same car. Now they have a Penske Alliance. Who knows? Santino was always going to be one to watch at the Indy 500. Maybe he builds off this momentum going into the month of May. We'll have to see. But just a reminder, looking at the results, we talked about the results in the current point standings. We talked a little bit of fun about Georgina. Just a reminder, like I said for Indy Next, we got our IndyCar driver of the day. Like I said, my criteria is basically whoever did the most in the field, whoever impressed me, slicing and dicing, whoever gained most from their point from the starting position. It was a tough call between both Ferrucci and Lundqvist, but after all, I got to give the advantage to someone. But my Casey Racing driver of the day is the rookie from Chip Ganassi Racing and the number 8 of American Legion Honda. Casey Racing's driver of the day goes to Linus Lundqvist. He started 19th, finishes 3rd. Does a completely alternate strategy compared to McLaughlin's 3-stop and Alex Lowe doing 2-stop. He pits during the first caution, ends up giving them the advantage. He finishes 3rd, gets his first career podium in the IndyCar series. So big congratulations, big clap for Linus Lundqvist, first career podium. Even though it was a track that benefited him in the Indy Next series, great run for him. Big ol' attaboy to Mr. Lundqvist on a great finish, first career podium. Hopefully there's more than that comes from. But anyways, that's enough about Barber. Let's go ahead and switch gears. Reminder the IndyCar next race up. We had a week off after 2 straight races. May 11th, 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC and Peacock. You got the Sonoso Grand Prix at the IMS Road Course. Just a reminder, IndyCar is in Indianapolis the whole month of May. I just want to point this out for marketing. I'm going to do a marketing point. Now I'm going to shut up before I sign off. I'm going to shut up before I sign off. I'm going to do a marketing point. Here's the thing. IndyCar is always in IMS the entire month in Indianapolis month of May. This is a perfect opportunity. Reach out to Pat McAfee. See if a driver can go to see if Pat McAfee wants to do a show at the IMS Motor Speedway. See if because the Thunderdome's in Indianapolis that Pat McAfee does the show at. See if you can get either Elio, one of your part-time Indy 500 only drivers, or see if you can get one of your full-time guys to go to the Thunderdome and do a little interview. May not work for this year, but why not next year? There's all that opportunity is there. Pat McAfee knows about IndyCar. See if you can get someone to go to the Pat McAfee's, go to the Thunderdome, see if they can do a little interview for the Pat McAfee show and talk about the Indy 500. The opportunity's right there. This is a perfect marketing opportunity. You're in Indianapolis the whole month of May. The Thunderdome is in Indianapolis. Reach out. Worst they can say is no. Why not reach out? I don't know if they have, but there's the opportunity there. As well, you got the biggest WNBA player, Caitlin Clark. I'm sure she's busy. She's busy with other stuff. Why not see if she wants to come wave the green flag for the Indy 500? See if she wants to. See if you can get her to do a 2-seater ride. I'm sure that's possible because you're in IMS the whole month. Opportunities are there. You just got to execute it, IndyCar. It's there. You just got to figure out how to execute it. Anyways, May 11th, 3 p.m. Eastern on NBC, on Big Network NBC, streaming on Peacock. I'll talk about the ratings probably on Twitter Thursday afternoon. We'll talk about those ratings later. But that's enough. Reminder, we're in IMS the whole month of May. That's enough talking about that. I'm sure I went over what I wanted to do, but that's all right. I'm gonna go ahead and sign off. Remember, follow both of my accounts on Twitter and X at HJCarp, CARP29, and at Casey Racem, KASEYRACEM. Just a reminder, I'm gonna update my logo. I'm updating the logo for the show once the month of May starts. I'm gonna update it once I get an opportunity to, and I'm looking to get some interviews with either some Indie Next people, some IndyCar people. I'm reaching out. I'm hoping to hear something back. I'll update once Twitter next once I get some updates about that. And as always, as the great Indianapolis legend Pat McAfee of the Pat McAfee Show says, be a friend, tell a friend something nice. It might change your life. Once again, I'm signing off. I'm Casey Racem. I hope you enjoyed. We went 18 minutes, basically 30 minutes live. I hope you enjoyed. I'm Casey Racem. As always, be a friend, tell a friend something nice. It might change your life. New episode next week with a hopefully new logo